Welcome back to another episode of PB Ballers. We got a rapid match reaction for the South Korea versus Jordan game. Pleased to be joined by returning contributor Michael Welch, and we got a newcomer today, Mr. Charles O, calling in from the beautiful city of New York. How we doing, gentlemen?
Doing fantastic, Albert. Thank you guys for having me. That was actually a funner match than usual than what we're used to from the zombie football day. So it was a good morning.
I love how we're all wearing different jerseys. That's kind of wild.
Yeah,
We got different ones.
Charles has
We all have the new
2022.
crest at least.
Yeah, I got the new ones. Charles got the World Cup ones from Qatar, and Mike has the pre-Qatar ones, right? Yeah.
Yeah, this is the isn't this the maybe like 2020 Olympics one?
No, I think it's the one they used right before the World Cup before they changed.
Dark days.
Okay.
Yeah, and speaking of the World Cup, we had another World Cup qualifying match, this time away in the Middle East to Jordan. Guys, obviously this is the team that we lost to in the semifinals of the Asian Cup. We all remember that embarrassing performance. Just a quick, my reaction, I guess, to what we saw today. Good result, obviously. Away in the Middle East is always a good. Getting a win away in the Middle East is always good, considering how hard it is to play there. But I have to say, Myung-bo, man, he gets credit for making the right substitutions. But the starting 11 again, Hwang Hee-chan playing as like a hybrid 10 left winger with Chu Ming-gyu in the middle. I mean, I like Chu as a player in the K-League, but guys, just not good enough as a striker for the national team. Not dynamic enough. Not enough movement off the ball. I think maybe Hong Myung-bo was saved a little bit by some of the injuries today. Like the injury to Hwang Hee-chan forced him to sub on Ji-sung, who then got hurt, forced him to sub on Jun-ho, etc., etc., etc. What did you guys firstly think of Hong's performance? And then we'll get to the players.
Yeah, I agree with you. The starting 11, 살짝 아쉬웠는데 it left a little to be desired, and I completely agree with you. I think naturally he got lucky because of the injuries to Hwang Hee-chan and Ji-sung. Definitely, Chu Ming-gyu looking old. I think his number 9 position is up for grabs, as we saw with the Oh Hyeon-Gyu substitution. But all in all, I know this is not going to be a popular take. I might get killed for this, but I thought this was arguably our best performance since the Bento days. The Klinsmann zombie soccer days. It was just such an eyesore. Even though we won with dramatic wins in the end, I thought this was a much more stable and controlled performance. I was surprised that he put Cho Yu-min as Kim Min-jae's partner at center back. I know he typically went with his older Ulsan player, so that was a nice fresh of breath there. And I think main highlight for me was, and I don't know if it was out of strategy or choice or rationale, but at least this was like a changing of the guard finally. This was the first match that I thought we saw the younger generation get highlighted, whether it was by Myung-bo's decision or just by natural circumstances due to injury. We saw Pejunho, Ji-sung, Kang-in. We saw Sunnyless Korean national team finally get some points and a good result. So all in all, net positive. Obviously room for criticism for Myung-bo's starting lineup, but I think it was a net positive performance by the manager and the players.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Charles just said. I think that, the lineup defensively, I was really happy with it. I think that Hong Myung-bo really had an opportunity to continue to ride his old player, Jung Seung-yeon, that he's, had at Ulsan for a while and, has been around obviously the national team for a long time, but has never really proven himself to be really all that great. Jung Seung-yeon has had a lot of promise. He's been around since the 2016 Olympics. People thought he'd be really good. He's not. So pairing him with Cho Yu-min was a really good move. Lee Myung-jae also has had a really solid season for Ulsan, so he was a really good choice at left back. So defensively, I like the lineup. But yeah, Hwang Hee-chan has been in terrible form. He's been totally benched by Wolves. So why ride him again? Just because he's a national team stalwart? I think Ji-sung got on the pitch and, showed a little bit of what he could do. Obviously, in the second half, Jun-ho and Oh Hyeon-Gyu were incredible. So, yeah, there's positives and negatives, but Charles is right. This performance was really good. We look so tight in possession. We were very technical. We were able to maneuver the ball really well, and just the passing triangles were there. Overall, yeah, it was a good watch, and we played really well against Jordan, who's been very tough for us recently. So good performance. I was happy with it.
Yeah, I think definitely the one surprising move is starting Cho Yumin at center back. Cho was part of that 2022 World Cup squad, but he's kind of been in and out of the national team picture ever since then. And obviously, Chung Sun Young is horrific. One of the worst
Very
players I've
horrific.
seen. I've seen him live before in Korea. He's terrible. I was really impressed with Cho Yumin and just his range of passing. He made some really excellent passes across the halfway line. Maybe he could be a solution next to Kim Min-jae, but that remains to be seen. It's only been one game. It's nice to know that he's competent enough to at least be a substitute. But I was a little disappointed if we're sticking to center backs that Lee-Bum was stuck in the stands. He was one of the three players that were not allowed into the lineup, as well as Kwon Hyuk-gyu, who's another defensive midfielder that could replace Park Young-woo. I give credit to Park Young-woo today. I think he wasn't as horrific as he usually is, but that's a really low bar, He had some really bad misplaced passes in the final third that probably would have been punished against a more clinical team. We have to remember, guys, not to be negative, but this Jordan team is missing some players. The team's been in a bit of a chaotic state, I think, with their new coach as well. So this isn't the Jordan team we saw at the 2023 Asian Cup, right? This is not the same version that we lost to. But again, some like we said, some positive performances. But again, I think against Iraq, as we come up to this game later in the week, I think Park Young-woo is going to get exposed. And the question for me is, does Hong Myung-bo stick with a similar lineup that he did with the veterans, or does he let some of the kids play? And I think that's a criticism we've had of him for a long time, right?
Yeah, and I think putting aside all the political stuff, all the Chukyop 논란 recently, I wanted to see some growth in Hong Myung-bo, and I think we've stereotyped him as like a player's coach, not the most tactical or strategic. But I thought him starting Cho Yu-min in front of Chung Seung-young and all his other Ulsan players kind of is showing some growth in his mentality. Cho Yu-min was a former striker, I believe, so he has the pace to keep up with a counter-attacking Altamari and Al Naimat, the two all-star players, Albert, you mentioned that were missing for Jordan, who killed us last time in the Asia Cup. So there's definitely, whether it was Hong Myung-bo's analysis or staff's analysis, he actually thought about his starting lineup this time. So I think that's a positive sign for football national team, Korean football national team fans moving forward. If we're just looking at the football of it all, none of us he was none of our first choices as manager, but he's at least showing signs of growth from his World Cup run, always sticking to his Ulsan stars, his favorites. And again, by natural circumstances or not, we're starting to see the second generation, the post-Sunny generation, make its mark.
Yeah, and I mean, just to like kind of counter what you were talking about, Albert, like that Lee-Bum was in the stands, we can also just hope that maybe Cho Yu-min is settled on as like this little stopgap until we see some playing time and real consistent form from those young guys, Lee-Bum and Kim Ji-soo, right? Those guys, Lee-Bum himself, like, he'll get to play one match every month, maybe, for Midtjylland, right? He gets to play very infrequently. So far, Kim Ji-soo has played maybe 30 first-team minutes total for Brentford. So putting those guys in an international senior-level match might be really risky. So just rolling with Cho Yu-min for a couple more months or years until those guys are really, performing at a consistent level would be really cool. I think he's a great player. And Cho Yu-min has been a great player for a long time, very solid. We forget sometimes that he was incredible at the 2018 Asian Games. He was a stalwart in that defense and played really, really well with Hwang In-bum in that tournament. And he's kind of been in and out of the KNC, but was always a really, really good K-League player. So I'm really happy for him. But yeah, next match, I really need to see Kwon Hyuk-gyu at least get a jersey number. Give this kid a jersey number. Let him be a substitute. And if Park Young-woo is stinking up the pitch against a more physical and more fast Iraq, get that kid on the pitch because Kwon Hyuk-gyu is really physical and actually has good legs on him too. He's got to see some time at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it was growth from Hong for sure for starting Cho Yu-min. I know some people thought Lee Myung-jae was good today, the left back from Ulsan. I
thought he was great.
He was okay. But again, I think the point for me of these qualifiers is not just to play one guy. If there is a problem position, I want to see multiple guys brought in, and I think Hong has historically done a poor job of that, but he's getting a little better. So you're right. We do have to give him credit. I want to talk about maybe some of the more attacking players. Jun-ho put on by accident because Ji-sung got hurt. Wow, I think at one point, I don't know about the final stats, but at one point he had 22 out of 22 passes completed, terrorizing Jordan's defense. Really working well with Oh Hyeon-Gyu, actually, just the movement. Same with Oh Hyeon-Gyu. Like, he is a 9 technically, but he's not Cho Gyu-sung or Chu Min-gyu 9. He's not a static 9. He's more of a guy that likes to move around and switch positions. So I thought it was a perfect combination of putting those guys on. Yeah, I mean, Mike has been the one to rave about Oh Hyeon-Gyu at Genk. Just how happy were you to see him score that banger of a goal for his first international goal as well?
Dude, this guy's awesome. I think what's great about him is that he's really fast. He's very technical. He loves those step overs. He loves those little cutbacks, and he's just very unpredictable with the ball. Like he basically like tied that Jordanian defender in a knot before he scored that goal, but then he still has, the ability to get so much power in that shot. The goalkeeper had no chance. And it wasn't necessarily like that far away from where the goalkeeper was standing, but it was just so fast that the Jordanian goalkeeper was just caught off balance. He could not dive for it. So he's a great player. I think it'll be really good to see him continue to get minutes with Genk, score more goals for them, and just build his confidence back up again. I think Celtic really kind of ran him down to the ground. Like he lost a lot of confidence there, did not feel like the manager had his trust at all. He's in a better place now, and I think he's going to provide a really good option for us up front because, like, even if he's not that tall, he's very physical and he's really good in the air, actually. Like, on all those long balls from Jo Hyun-woo, he was attacking them and he was winning some headers too. Good player, man. Good player.
Yeah, Oh Hyeon-Gyu, like when I compare him to strikers across the world, I think he falls really short. But the thing that's interesting about him for our national team is when you compare him to the other strikers, the other number 9s we have available, he seems like the obvious choice. But when I was watching him today, he still lacked like the ability to hold the ball. Some of the passes left a lot to be desired. But just for the fact that he's athletic, he's motivated to prove himself because he's younger, and he's younger than 30s, is enough to propel our number 9 position a lot further than what we've been stuck with Chu Min-gyu, even Oh Seun, even Cho Gyu-sung. I think, and I'm just happy for him. Fellow Oshi, I really thought his career was going down the drain after Celtic. So, and I think Myung-bo, that's another part of his responsibility. Those players that are out of form at their club teams, when they come for the national team, highlight them, put them in positions for success so they can earn more money and spread more Korean football influence around the world. So all in all, he's on the come up. So just can't wait to see more from him. I think he has a good chance to start for the Iraq Jun for the Iraq match.
Yeah, and speaking of the Iraq match, I think that while we give Myung-bo credit today for making the right subs, I think we're really going to judge him on his starting 11 for that Iraq match. The adjustments he makes for a tougher opponent, but also more importantly, some of his favorite players like Hwang Hee-chan are injured or not, probably won't be available for that match. And speaking of injuries, guys, and just Hwang Hee-chan, having a nightmare season at Wolves, hardly playing. I think Wolves are near the bottom of the table or at the bottom of the EPL table right now. The tackle from behind wasn't the dirtiest, but it wasn't exactly clean either, I think. The Jordanian players were coming in pretty hard. It looks like an ankle injury. He looked to be in quite a bit of pain. I think it was the first knock he took, he was able to walk it off, and then he took another one to the same ankle, and then that's when he got subbed off. Gentlemen, when we saw that, what was your first reaction? For me, it was just more like, here we go again, and maybe he shouldn't be a starter for the national team anymore. I think he's still very useful as a substitute, but a little too unreliable in terms of his body.
I mean, he's always been kind of injury prone. But for me, like, what I'd like to see is I think he should be an impact sub until he's back to Wolves' starting lineup and back scoring goals. Like, it's hard for you to come in out of form and having gotten very little minutes for your club team and then being asked to start. So forget about past performances for the national team. Base the starting lineup on who's in form and who's playing a lot. Hwang Hee-chan shouldn't be starting right now for the national team because he's not starting for his club team and he's not in good form. He's played very poorly at the beginning of the season. He's looked really rough. his coach at the club level benched him because of that. So why would you reward him with a start in a very important national team match, right? For me, when he gets back to form, when he starts scoring goals again, then he can start. But until then, like, you can have him around the national team as an impact sub and as a leader, but don't start him if you don't need to.
Yeah, this is a tough topic for me. I'm kind of biased towards him. He's always been one of my favorite players on the national team. But being honest about, that Portugal goal is one of the best moments of my life, literally. But looking at his form now and his competency always has been, he's not the best passer, he's not the best holder or anything. All he's good at is sprinting and finishing. So when you're compositing a team, you have to think about those things. And I think when you look at resources like Ji-sung or Peo-Jun-ho, who are a little bit better of a passer, a little bit more natural over a winger, or even Lee-jae-sung, they should take priority over out of form Hee-chan. I am not out on Hee-chan though. I think I've watched a lot of his interviews, gotten to know his personality, and he's very similar to Sonny. He's so committed. He's a genuine guy. Football is his passion. All he does is train, sleep, eat. He sleeps early, works out over the off season on his weaknesses. So I don't think his story ends here. But for now, completely agree with you guys. I think super sub, it might have always been his best role due to his competencies always being just speed, pace, and finishing. Where that left winger spot is really a creative spot, which, Albert, I don't know where you want to take this, but I really want to kind of spend some time talking about Peo-Jun-ho, because he's showcasing himself as the future of that spot, potentially. Sonny is on his way out. And Junho really reminds me of like Lee Kang-in when he was younger. They're similar sizes. I think they have a similar creative play style. Stoke is having some difficulties in the English Championship, so I think being a part of a team that's struggling, his individual performance has been kind of wavering as well. But I think he's showing the Korean people, the Korean fans, his manager, that left wing spot might be his to lose, and then he can play the 10 too, as he does for Stoke. So I'm really excited about him. Just gonna squeeze this in here. I'm a United fan. I'm praying the day that Park Ji-sung helps United sign Peo-Jun-ho. I just feel like it could happen. He's talked in the past, though, Mike, that he wants to go to Arsenal for whatever reason, so potential Martinelli replacement. But I'm really excited. I feel like the takeaway for me from this game is that Peo-Jun-ho's coming. And he was able to show that in 20 minutes, 30 minutes. So imagine if he gets more opportunity. So really excited about that.
Yeah, I mean, he's not playing that much at Stoke in the beginning of the year. I think he had a bit of an injury. He's been back so far. He's got 3 assists in 8 matches, no goals. Not terrible stats, not the greatest, but what we saw today was that, yeah, he in fact can be that player for Stoke who deserves to play more, and most certainly deserves to play with the national team. And I remember he made the choice to go to the championship, which I think was a fantastic decision. Named club's player of the year in his first season at Stoke. Yeah, I mean, I think of all the young kids we have to be excited about, I don't know if you guys agree with this, but out of all of them, I think Peo-Jun-ho definitely has shown the most promise in terms of not just what he's shown for the national team, but also what he's doing at his club team. It is early, but I wouldn't be upset if I saw the 2026 starting 11 and I saw Lee Kang-in as the 10, Peo-Jun-ho on the right, or Peo-Jun-ho on even the left or right side. I don't care what side he plays on. As long as he can rotate well with Sonny and Kang-in, that's all that matters to me.
Like this kid's gonna be good, and for me, so this is a front line to be scared of, guys. For any team at the 2026 World Cup, Kang-in in the middle, Peo-Jun-ho maybe on the left, or on the right, Son Heung-min maybe on the left per se, and then up top, Oh Hyeon-Gyu. That could be really scary.
Yeah, I just think Korean football fans' biggest anxiety is what is our team going to look like post-Sunny? And I think Peo-Jun-ho is starting to fill that void and give us excitement and confidence. And not just him. Oh Hyeon-Gyu, Lee Hyun-ju in the Swiss league, he's showing to be a competitive number 9 candidate with Oh Hyeon-Gyu. So imagining a front line with Oh Hyeon-Gyu at top, Lee Kang-in at the right, Lee Jae-sung in the middle, or switch Lee Kang-in and Peo-Jun-ho on the left. We have a lot to be excited about. So I think that's all we can hope. That's all we can ask for as a fan base.
Charles, you meant Lee Young-jun, not Lee Hyun-ju.
Yeah.
Young-jun.
Lee Young-jun.
Yeah, Lee Hyun-ju is a midfielder, yeah.
Honestly, we're going to have an embarrassment of riches for the 2026 World Cup, because there's a lot of attacking players that could earn a starting place. At striker, right, you could think of Oh Hyun-Gyu. You could think about Lee Young-jun. You can also think about Cho Kyu-sung coming back to form. So those are, three guys it's possible, right? Those are three strikers. For like wingers, you can think about Jung Sang-bin. What if he's chosen for the national team at that point? Oh Hyeon-Gyu from the second Bundesliga. Obviously, Jun-ho, Ji-sung, Yang Min-hyuk. There's a lot of guys actually. And then obviously Kang-in, Sunny. And then what of, older veterans like Lee Jae-sung and Hwang Hee-chan? What will we do with them, right? There's a lot of attacking players that could be very useful in 2 years' time.
For sure. There's going to be a lot of guys that Myung-bo is going to have to take a look at, and that's where we hope maybe his connections, as an icon of Korean football, will make it easier for him to connect with these players. Obviously, he probably already has their respect, but it's really going to be important, those personal relationships he makes with them as they develop, so they feel comfortable not just playing in the club teams, but also when they come over to the KNT. And speaking of guys bringing their form from their clubs to the KNT, unfortunately, I don't think we saw the best of Lee Kang-in today. Everyone knows I'm his biggest fan. I think he's the future of Korean football, the one who will take the torch from Sonny and lead some of these guys like Jun-ho to the future. I've been recently playing for Luis Enrique at PSG as like a false nine. Kind of a weird decision, but at times it did work for some games. I think against Arsenal with the big center backs, it didn't work at all. Myung-bo decided to put Kang-in on the right side this time, which is something Jurgen Klinsmann liked to do a lot. Unfortunately, from what I saw, and I think Paul Jung mentioned this in his ratings, which you should go check out on Twitter, Lee Kang-in has an issue when he plays on the right wing in the fact that if you double team him and limit his space, he's really not going to be effective. Maybe some games he will get past some guys, but if you put two guys on him right on the touchline, there's just nowhere to go, which is why a lot of people have been harping on the fact that he needs to move to the middle eventually and be the 10 because there's just more freedom there, right? Do you think his performance today is the fact that he played at right wing, or do you think it's just him not playing well?
I'm not concerned about Kang-in at all. I used to think that his natural position was the right wing, but honestly, from what you said, I do start to agree and see the vision that maybe at 10 on KNT and for PSG, he'll be better. I'm not concerned with him because I think today it was his first time playing without Sonny, and normally when we play against opponents, everybody's hovering around Sonny. Mm-hmm. He takes up 2-3 defenders. Today, Kang-in was Sonny. On that right side, they were always covering him. But funny enough, in the second half, that right side really opened up for us, even though he was struggling. So today's performance was probably one of his worst performances on the national team. But individually, I'm not concerned at all. I think, maybe if we find another right wing to use, he's better off. And Paul is the Kang-in guru, the PSG guru, so I'll lean on his expertise. So maybe the 10 is the better option, but not concerned at all about him. He's going to be just fine.
Yeah, and I like the point that Charles made that like Kang-in was kind of the Sunday today. With all the Jordanian defenders focusing on him, we got to give them and their game plan a lot of credit because they neutralized him, they shut down his space, and they really forced him to dribble out of trouble or just be in congested areas where he doesn't have anywhere to pass. That was their design. They knew that he was the danger man that they had to focus on. And as long as they put a lot of people around him, they put him in trouble. Yeah, would he be better in the center? Of course. But I also think that like in a game where Son's involved and defenders are focusing on him, in a game where Jun-ho is involved and defenders are worried about him, or Oh Hyeon-Gyu's like running in behind, having him on the right is really good just because he cuts in, he has that magical left foot to just find people in the box in ways that no other Korean player finds people. Like him lofting that ball to get to Oh Se-hoon, like is just only he can do that shit, right? So sometimes I think that like right wing is fine for him because of his ability. But the other thing we have to say is he's good anywhere. He'd be good on the left wing. He was good on the left wing at the U20 World Cup all those years ago. He's good anywhere. He's just that good of a player.
I think that's his gift and his curse, as we see at PSG, is he's not, the top quality players that have the respect of their managers. They secure their position and they don't move. But we see Enrique at PSG moving around everywhere, right, left, middle, defensive midfielder, false nine. So I think he's suffering from a little bit of that. Fun fact, I was listening to some Korean football podcasts, and apparently Kang-in is top 4 in SofaScore average player rating in all of League 1, Liga, and he's number 1 for midfielders, I think. So even across the world, we have nothing to worry about this guy. This guy is the prodigy. He might be better than Sonny, like in terms of the gifts that he was dealt with. Sonny worked really hard to get to where he is, but no concern from me, and I don't think there should be any concern from Korean football fans about Kang-in.
Excellent, gentlemen. Yeah, and as we wrap up here, let's look forward to the game against Iraq. I think ideally for me, in terms of the attacking trident, shall we say, I'd like to see Pejino starting on the left wing, assuming that Ji-sung and Hwang Hee-chan are both out, which I'm assuming they're both going to be out. And then I'd like to put Kang-in in the middle, and maybe somebody like Lee Jae-sung on the right side. Lee Jae-sung and Kang-in can kind of switch positions, and then Oh Hyeon-Gyu as the striker. It's going to be interesting to see. Iraq is on another level, I think. They have one of the most dangerous attacking teams in Asia. Although I believe Jesus Casas has been playing a bit more defensive recently for some reason.
I agree. It's going to be a tough game. I personally think if we are lucky to get 1 point from it, we seem to play worse at home. I don't know what that's about. Maybe it's all the political fan issues, controversies, but Iraq historically has been one of our tougher opponents recently and from many years ago. So no, this should not be a wash. And to your point, Albert, I think this will be the real test to Myung-bo's management style, his strategy. Who is he going to start? If I had to predict what he was going to set up, it would be the exact same, except we replace Hwang Hee-chan with Pejino.
We'll have about another 45 to 50 minutes to watch Jun Myung-gyu kind of like labor around and do very little. And then we'll get to see Oh Hyeon-gyu again light it up. But should be a really good match. In Korea, it'll be taking place in Yongin, which is not our usual stadium, but
should be
very
better
exciting.
grass.
And it's going to be, better grass. So that should be a good match. And honestly, it's going to be really hotly contested. Iraq is not fun to play against. They're good. So I'm excited for it.
Yeah, that's right. The next game is going to be against Iraq next Tuesday, October 15th. It's going to be 7 a.m. East Coast time. Guys, make sure to keep an eye on our channel, Peepin' Ballers. Don't forget to follow us at Fighting Stripes Football on Twitter. Links will be down in the description. We'll have the links to Michael and Charles' personal accounts as well. But for now, thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
Bye, guys.